We grew up in a time where you would see an album and just assume that's the person that's the sole creator. That's the person that does everything. And that's not the case. There are the engineers. There are the people that are mixing. There are the songwriters and producers. That one song you love, there was a lot of people that were involved to make that happen. There are so many great creatives that don't get the flowers that they deserve.
Every week for the last 6 years, nearly one guy has walked into a studio and given a pop record its flowers, while the artist is still here to receive them. Producers, songwriters, the people who were actually in that room. This week alone, he broke down both sides of Confessions 2, and Darren Hayes has called him the most in-depth conversation about his own music that he has ever had. And today I get to sit across from him and ask him what makes an icon and what they owe the fans. Before we cheers with James Rodriguez, the original doll. Welcome.
Thank you so much for having me. I did like that intro. Can I get a copy of
Yeah,
that?
of course. Anytime you want.
Whenever I feel down, can I just press play?
Yeah, I think that teleprompter just prints out exactly what I just had. So
Love it. I'm in.
We are recording right from Chicago this time, a town that's meant a lot to me over the years. When I went to the University of Wisconsin-Madison, which is just a couple hours from here, as much as I love Madison, Chicago was it was an amazing big city to be near.
Mm-hmm.
And back in those days, not too long ago, just 15 years ago, not only was it so easy to get here because someone always had a car, someone always had a place to crash, but to be able to catch a show, to be able to catch like a party, you always knew that because it was Chicago, people were going to roll through here, whether you were someone big like a Fleetwood Mac or, a lesser known DJ that might have been, big in the scene, but those tickets would be 15 or 20 bucks on Resident Advisor or one of those.
Yeah, well, what I think is amazing is I think people tend to forget the home of music that exists here and has existed in Chicago. I think many times we think of Nashville, New York, California, even Miami. But I think what's been amazing is Chicago is such a culmination of so many great genres. And I like to point this out to many people is when we talk about these big like icons, which we'll talk about, so many of them are from the Midwest.
Yeah.
You look at Michael Jackson, Janet Jackson, Madonna, Prince, Jam and Lewis, you have all, and there's a ton more, but you have all these people that created such sonic blueprints. And I always go, Chicago has been great. And so many people love coming to Chicago. You have the walkability of it, but you also have, you can go to a jazz club, you can go to, Windy City Smokeout with country artists and things like that. And I think that's something that, it sounds like we're like the advisory board for like Chicago tourism.
I know.
But ultimately, Chicago can give you so much and you can see so many different concerts, to your point, top tier, super expensive. Also, you can just go to a local bar and see some new upcomer, which is always amazing. And I always say it's like a good palate cleanser. Like you get to taste and try something new. Chicago has so much culturally, food-wise, cuisine and everything. And I think Chicago deserves the flowers that I rightfully give it as often as I can.
I wanted to ask you a few things specifically about you, specifically about the show. You described the show called The Original Doll as giving artists their flowers while they're still here. So when did you know it was going to be more about making of the music rather than just the finished product? Or was that always the intention going on?
Well, I think it evolved over time to really see that there are so many great creatives that don't get the flowers that they deserve. We grew up in a time where you would see an album and just assume that's the person that's the sole creator. That's the person that does everything. And that's not the case. There are the engineers. There are the people that are mixing. There are the songwriters and producers. And I think so many times we tend to only acknowledge artists after they've passed. Or even actors and everything. They're like, oh my God, this person was so amazing. We never stop to think about what they did while they're still here to get those flowers. So for me, it was important to honor those because every single icon that I've ever talked about, they're collaborators. I've been fortunate enough to spend time with so many of these collaborators and innovators of the icons that I know you and I and many people that are listening love. And I think it's so often art gets lost in the mix of everything. People want to pull funding from schools for arts. People don't realize there's so much that goes on behind the scenes that I wanted to make sure we can acknowledge those people and give them the flowers because that one song you love, there was a lot of people that were involved to make that happen.
Yeah. It's someone else to aspire to, too, because it's great to have someone like a pop star, like a Britney, like, a Madonna, Janet, et cetera, these icons. But the people who make that happen, when they say it takes a village, and I know that's a very tired phrase, but in those particular cases with those artists specifically, it is very, very true. It is not like one manager or like one whomever. They may get a lot of credit. And for example, with Madonna, I give Guy Oseary all the credit in the world. I think he's a genius.
100%.
I think he's brilliant. I think they balance each other out super, super well. And they know each other very well. So they know what the other person's going to do. They work like a team. But people, now that we have more information than it feels like we ever have about the other people in the room who are there to make this stuff happen, like a Stuart Price with Madonna also, these are other people, you know who they are, so you can aspire to be them too. They're not under the rug anymore.
Well, and that's what's important. And we can see, you know, Guy post about his time with Madonna and everything, because it does take a village. Madonna, of course, could be in all these meetings about this and that. And in many ways, you already know what she wants. But there are so many people that, in addition, are part of that brand, are part of that community for her. And now we get to see them. Before, we didn't know who that was. We go back to old Hollywood. Here's the star. That's it. No one else.
Gene Kelly, Fred Astaire. Yeah.
Ginger Rogers. That's it. There you go. And I think what's amazing is to be able to actually put a name to that, because there are people. I interviewed, you know, entertainment lawyers where there are so many people behind the scenes making sure that that recording contract is beneficial. And if it's the lawyer for the artist, making sure that it's beneficial to the artist, talking about master rights and ownership and everything. And I think it's important for us to acknowledge that if you want to be in the music industry, you don't just have to be this musician. You can still play a huge part. There are all of those other aspects, from design, digital design, art, choreography, to lawyers and managers, representatives and everything. And I think seeing Guy is amazing because we've all known the name. And it's almost like he's able to take a bow too, with the fact that he always talks about Madonna first, M first. But when you look that he was there by her side this whole time and was able to collaborate in such a way that was groundbreaking and innovative, that truly had not been done to the level that they were able to do it and accomplish these things.
I liked what you said before about going into the industry as an artist and a musician. But in my experience, I think if you're really going to succeed, you need to know who all these other people are and what they do. And that's just as vital as what you're putting out there, because you need to utilize and understand how the machine works so that you can be a part of that machine and let the machine prop you up while you prop yourself up as well.
100%. And I think the best way for you to be the best at what you want to do is making sure that you have those people that can cover all the bases that maybe you're not so familiar with or an expert at that moment. There are so many stories that I've heard from songwriters and producers that are like, I signed this bad contract. I had no one looking out for me. They took all of my writing. They took all of the publishing. And they said, just because they didn't know, you don't know what you don't know. By having a community of people that you can trust and also are at the top of their game and eager to continue, it's easy for people to become, you know, these managers or other parts of team and just sit around and let everything else happen. It's important that they also have that desire to continue to thrive and to innovate. An innovator, an icon, needs a team of innovators with them to push them forward. No one should be playing it safe. And I think Madonna, Guy Oseary, and everyone else that's been involved in everything, this Confessions 2 has shown that she's gone beyond what people thought she was going to do. And she needed that team behind her. How does Madonna become and be Madonna still in 2026? She succeeded.
And we're going to get into that in great detail, because this is one of my favorite things she's come out with in 20 years. On the topic of your podcast, where did the original doll come from? Where's that story?
From back in like 2004, Britney Spears showed up at a radio station and played a song called Mona Lisa, all off the books, as it were. The label wasn't sure what was happening. And
this is pre-conservatorship.
Pre-conservatorship. This is right after In the Zone. She heard her...
Post-Toxic.
Yes. She hurt her leg during the filming of the outrageous music video for the In the Zone. Her tour at the time was the remaining dates were canceled. She was taking time away. The label decided, let's put out a greatest hits album, which was smart. Just like with Janet or Madonna, these greatest hits albums or just the hits albums always do well.
Yeah.
Keep their name in the conversation. And they asked Britney, what's this new album going to be called? Where are you working on a new album? She said, yeah, it's a lot done. It's going to be called, I don't know, like The Original Doll. And in that moment, I was like, well, that's interesting, because at that point, she was still fighting off people saying, she's not original. She's just a puppet. She's just this Barbie that, people.
All the lip syncing allegations and all of that. It was very much that time where there was not very much good press about her.
No, not at all. And people forget that for a long time, Britney Spears busted her, I don't know what you could say on here, busted her in.
Swear as much as you want on
perfect.
my podcast.
Even better.
Please.
But Britney busted her ass and worked. She was the one working out. She was the one learning the choreography, doing that. And it's that misogyny that was really, really happening to Britney. Everything about Britney was not being said about male performers that were doing the same thing, or there were allegations of them lip syncing or not being real or X, Y, and Z. But at that time, I was like, this is interesting, because what is that about? And then you hear from Jive Records a day or two later, nope, there's no album happening. I'm like, then everyone in the different chat rooms at that time were like, oh, Britney was being told what to do, and the label hated her and all this other stuff. So I said, if I ever created a show, I want it to be called The Original Doll, because I want to explore what is the behind the scenes of that, what actually happened, because over the decades, there's so many different falsities, rumors, stories that some people in the fandoms have created about certain artists. So I just go directly to the people themselves. I went to Britney Spears' A&R, Steve Lunt. He was there responsible for putting her in the room with all these people, studio time, everything. He has these journals that he's been kind enough to go through. Steve's an amazing person.
He archived his own experience then.
Yeah. Archived everything. He has emails, facts. He has all sorts of things. Receipts, timeline.
Yeah.
But what I think is amazing about that is what he's doing is he's saying, these are just the facts. I'm going to lay these facts out to you. In a world in which so many things are just set online that have no truth to them, I figured, how can I continue, 2019, 2020, beyond, to honor these artists? Well, let's clear up all of those things. And to the dismay of some people, because if they've spent decades saying, I know for a fact Britney did X, Y, and Z, and that's it, and she was here recording the song, and if we have the studio books and it says, no, she was not even in the country doing X, Y, and Z, people get upset about that. And my job is not to, continue their falsities. My job is just to state the facts and honor these actual people. People like Steve and these songwriters, these producers who were in the studio, who were giving their time, who were taking time away. Songwriters were not getting paid. They don't get paid to show up and write a bunch of songs. Songs that leak, they're not getting paid on that. And so I created this, The Original Doll, specifically to just go, let's honor those people and correct some of the BS in the Britney Spears fandom, but also to truly honor somebody's legacy, you should know the facts if we have them. And so I just go through and just uncover all sorts of kind of fun information to honor these people and accurately honor them, because Britney is an artist that doesn't get the love of people that think that she's a hard worker, that she was actually in the studio doing these things, because she was. That's not something to argue about. A fact is a fact.
Yeah. Just the choreo alone, by the way, is a lot of work. These people don't play. It is very physically demanding.
100%.
The toll that touring takes on you, on top of like the choreo and the performance itself, it's very underrated. People never talk about that, because there's this, I'm not saying that the road and, all that life isn't special and unique and incredible. It is. And if you don't believe me, go watch Almost Famous and see what they say about it. But
100%.
But I think that just being able to give her flowers, even just for that, if she only had that, she's done so much more than that over and over and over and over again.
100%. She, for decades, has never had to, outdo herself. She's never had to prove herself, I should say. She's never had to do that, because she's already done it all and done it to a caliber that most would dream. Something I learned early on is those that are doing better than you are never talking about, you who might not be to that caliber. It's always the people that are just upset that they're not performing this. Like, Britney can't do this. I go, I challenge you. Go take a class with this choreographer. Go take a class with this dancer.
Yeah.
Do that all the time. Do it all the time and still trying to look your best, be 100% on at that time. You know, in the late 90s, early 2000s, women were always supposed to smile and be happy all the time. They always had to, you were not allowed a bad day. You were not given a bad day as a woman in the music industry. You had to be smiles and everything. But then when a male artist would act out or do something like, oh, he's just being funny. Oh, he's just being, you know, smart about this. Women aren't afforded that same thing. And I think the people that don't understand what Britney truly did don't actually understand what she did.
Yeah.
And that's on them. But go take a class from any of those people. I'm sure there are lots of great choreographers that would love to teach you some Britney choreography and see how you can do it in that time. And she had to pick up songs quickly.
Yeah.
Her world was, she was cranking out music left and right.
And I bet Brian Friedman would kick your ass in one of those choreo lessons.
100%.
He would kick mine, that's for sure.
100%. I would get whiplash just throwing my head once. I'm like, okay, I'm down for the game. Like, I'm done.
You just said something really that reminded me of a press conference Madonna did where someone, so it wasn't even a question. It was just some guy being an asshole. And he said something along the line. Yeah, because that's, yeah. So so someone said to her, I could do anything you can do, like, or I could do whatever you have done. I'm paraphrasing.
Yeah.
And then she said something back to him like, okay, but you didn't, which to me pretty much says it all. It's like it's easy for people to hide behind an Instagram account, a chat room, a this or that, where you can go ahead and talk shit about like whomever you want for like what they've done or what you think they did correctly or incorrectly, whatever. But at the end of the day, just like you said, but you haven't done it. You haven't done any of that. And you probably won't ever accomplish what they've done in one lifetime in several lifetimes. So,
well, and I always say this, no one talks more online about Madonna than people who hate Madonna.
yeah,
That's just a fact.
that is 1,000% correct. Except for maybe me, who loves Madonna. But
you're still not 24/7 commenting on every single possible post that any random person posts.
Yeah.
Like, it's that part. And I think that is also part of I would say, the icon status of Madonna, that you are still so annoyed with her just existing and just doing her job that your entire personality is just saying, she can't do this. She shouldn't do this. She's too old.
yeah,
It's like, okay. And I've engaged with some people before where they're like, I think she should quit singing, quit performing. I think she should quit wearing those outfits. I was like, wait, rewind back. Where were you at with the Roe v. Wade thing? Well, women should do whatever they want with their body.
yeah,
Madonna's doing what she wants with her body. You should not be telling her what she should do with it. If you stand behind the value of what we are talking about, let her be.
yeah.
Why does her existing bother you so much?
Because she became the fall girl, fall woman, you know, for so much of what I guess our country and America like sort of maybe felt was wrong with us. So it was easy for, you know, it was like when Eminem was like at his tops and there was this whole dialogue from all these different news outlets and these parents complaining like these kids are terrible and it's because they're listening to music like Eminem's or listening to music like Madonna's. And it's like, they're not the reason that these people, these kids are acting the way they are. You have a problem with your kid. Like
100%.
Everyone's got their version of what these people and these artists are bringing them. They're not giving them permission to be quote unquote bad. They're giving them permission to be themselves and just to express themselves the way they'd like to. And no one's really hurting anybody. The only thing that's hurt is your ego.
100%. And
I'm talking to the parents, not to you.
100, 100%. That I knew. That I knew. That I knew. But I think if music videos and everything have such that ability to change somebody, then why aren't you taking a terrible person and playing them happy music and happy thing? If it's that easy to change somebody just based on listening to music or watching videos or movies, then if that's the case, let's do it the other way. Somebody's terrible. Switch it, make them watch the happiest movie that was ever made or whatever that may be. But it's not. And I think people tend to hide behind their own insecurities as to why, you know, maybe their child isn't doing what they want them to do, or maybe their spouse isn't doing what they want them to do. I think it comes down to just own the fact that we're human beings. Not everything is based on what you see on the screen, period. I didn't grow up thinking I was going to be the Princess Bride, and I love the Princess Bride. You know what I mean? Shout out if you like Princess Bride.
Yeah.
But I knew that was not going to be, I knew I was not going to be Pretty Woman. I still watched it. You know what I mean? I can separate that. It's amazing.
Yeah. Yeah. You've talked about a holy trinity before of your pop stars, and I would tell me if I'm wrong, but it's Madonna, Britney, Janet Jackson.
Yes. Yes.
If there was a Mount Rushmore of pop and you had to pick one more, who's on that Mount Rushmore?
Female recording artists?
Yeah,
okay, let's just do female recording artists.
Yeah.
Because I do love male recording artists. Like I grew up on Otis Redding and Sam Cooke, Sly and the Family Stone.
Yeah.
I would honestly have to put on there, based on what I've lived and learned and experienced with it, would be Taylor Swift. Because I think that what you had, everyone talks about, oh, Britney Spears is the daughter of Janet. No, it's the daughter of Madonna. I think truly Britney Spears is the epitome of a child that grew up on MTV. When she talks about her love of Madonna and Janet, and she also talks about her love of George Michael and Prince. There were songs that she sampled, Prince songs. Some haven't heard the light of day yet, but she grew up on loving those and knowing if you want to be this superstar, visuals are there, storytelling is there, performance has to be there. Britney was that next generation after Madonna and Janet. And I think a lesbian couple of Janet Jackson and Madonna created this child known as Britney Spears. And I'm okay with always thinking about that. Why is it just one mom? Why can't it be two moms?
Yeah.
So I think that, and then I think when I look at what Taylor Swift has been able to do, I will never, ever talk down about how hard she works, how much she gives back, what she has done to change the game. I would put Taylor Swift up there because when we grew up we're going to the record store, we're excited to go get that CD, whether it's Best Buy or Circuit City or HMV or wherever you are.
I don't, for my own heart.
Special place. Or Media Play if you're out in certain regions. But I think Taylor Swift made wanting to go to concerts and wanting to buy physical media important again. Not that she was the only person to do it, but at the scale she did it. She also knew her audience. How do I evolve with them? And I know a lot of people would say, well, yes, she sold a lot, but she had all these variants and this and that. I also think of it this way. The Immaculate Collection, I got the Laserdisc. I got the CD, the LP, the cassette tape. There was always like different variations of it. But I think Taylor Swift understands her crowd so much so that she's become her own marketer and her own music maker. She has collaborators and everything, but I'd put Taylor Swift up there for that reason. And Taylor Swift would not be here as this amazing female recording artist without the influence of Britney, without the influence of Janet and Madonna. And she's talked about that repeatedly. And let's not forget, Steve Lunt, who I mentioned, took a meeting with Taylor Swift at Jive Records when she was like 13 years old because she wanted to be signed to Jive because it was NSYNC, Backstreet Boys, and Britney.
Yep.
And he said, it just doesn't work for me. That's not what it is. People messaged me saying, James, but wait, I don't understand. Why would he have not said yes? Well, that Taylor Swift at that time was not the Taylor Swift we have now.
No, that was I mean, maybe it was, you might know Taylor better than I do in her discography, but I believe that was the Teardrops on My Guitar, or about to be that phase.
About to be that. And Jive Records was not in a position, and which smartly, they were not in a position to market this young country singer.
That's not what Jive was at all,
And now when you look back and you see Taylor Swift will acknowledge all these other women that came before her. So I would put her as the fourth person on there. People are not going to like it, but it's not up to you to decide what my Mount Rushmore is.
It's your Mount Rushmore. You can put whatever you want. You run these themed weeks on your podcast, or you've done like Madonna Mondays, a whole week of Janet's Control, weeks on Britney and Aaliyah and Whitney and Mariah and Kylie, all these. I think a lot of pop podcasts, tend to stay within like a smaller lane of artists. Not to say that they all focus on one. Some do. But what's your philosophy for that, for the Original Adult as a podcast?
I think I chose diversity over just staying with one artist, or even just creating a show that says, I think artist A is better than artist B because of this reason. I put them on these like platforms and everything. And it's like, it's not what I do. What I wanted to do was honor so many of the greats that we had. Like Aaliyah, what she was able to do in her short amount of time phenomenal. Not all of us are homogenous in what we listen to. You can like Madonna and also like and love Kylie Minogue and like and love Alanis Morissette or Mary J. Blige, you know?
I'm a deadhead, man. Listen, like it's all over the place now, and that question of what do you listen to
Yeah.
is so like everyone says the same thing. I listen to everybody, and it's like I can't even blame people for that answer anymore because how can you only say one thing? Maybe you could talk about the day, what you
Mhm.
listen to that day, but in the world of streaming where we have so much at our fingertips now, like of course, like it's not one simple straight answer.
Well, and I wanted to create something that honors all these artists where I'm not combining them together because these women deserve, specifically the women that I honor and give flowers to, they deserve their own episode. They deserve their own shine because they made their own lane to kind of put them together, which I understand why people do that, or they'll
Mhm.
just say, I think this female artist is better than the other. That's their prerogative to do that.
Mhm.
I just think these women have been crumbled in a piece of paper so much that they're like, oh, it's the same thing. No, they deserve their shine. They deserve their moment because when I'm listening to that one song, that's the one song I'm listening to in that moment. So give them all the flowers.
Mhm.
They deserve it for all the moments that they give us.
Except hydrangeas when it comes to
Oh
Madonna.
God. Poor hydrangeas.
Poor
Just
hydrangeas. I know. My mother loves them. I do too. So speaking of
Oh.
everyone getting their flowers, it feels to me like Janet does not get a lot of credit for all that she's innovated on.
I think one of the big things that Janet is truly underrated for that she has done so well, exquisitely, is stacking of harmonies and layered vocals.
Mm.
They're unlike most that were out even at that time. She created the importance of layering your own vocals. And there are so many different vocals on there, and one could be just a little off, and it creates this amazing sound. A whole school of R&B singers learned a lot about layered vocals and those textures and those tones from Janet Jackson, Jimmy Jam, and Terry Lewis. You can go back to the fact that many people would say, oh, well, I don't like Janet Jackson's voice. You don't have to like it. She's not asking your permission to like her voice. Like it or don't. What I want people to listen to and acknowledge, just because it's not your type of music, that's okay. That doesn't negate the fact that what she brought to harmonies and layered vocals is important to the history of music. And so I think that Janet Jackson deserves more flowers and credit for bringing textured and layered vocals and harmonies to pop, R&B, all these different genres. She was able to do it genuine with the genuine love of it. She brought this innovation, and now it is spread to all these artists that came after her.
I like that you touched on layering because it feels like I don't hear a pop song like made today that doesn't include layering of like some sort, especially, and you could look to like a Billie Eilish, you know, or someone like that as a perfect example. And that's not a knock at Billie. Billie's great. But to remember that like these are where their roots come from, just very much like house was made by like, you know, the Black LGBT community, you know, and disco, and like that's all where it's rooted before. It's important to know where our roots come from.
100%. And that's why, even if you don't know that your favorite current artist was influenced by others, it doesn't negate the fact that they were, in fact, influenced by others.
Yes.
And that's okay to explore it. When I go back to the Britney Spears of it, Britney Spears was one of those artists early on who acknowledged all those people she was influenced by, all those people she aspired to be like. She wasn't afraid of it.
And
I
she
feel
came
like
up-
in the
I'm sorry, go ahead.
and I feel like in like the 2010s, it became don't acknowledge anyone else that you liked.
Which is
Don't acknowledge any
crazy.
of that. And if you're a female artist, it felt like they're like, say that you like this male group, say that you like that male group, not say that you would never hear artist A saying, oh, the person sitting at number one is my favorite or most influenced artist right now. You wouldn't hear that in the 2010s. Now we can go back and look at Billie Eilish's, old post, and she's like, oh my God, she was giving flowers to this artist or that artist.
Yeah, the Coachella Bieber like moment with her is like obviously very famous and very much, and she's never not like, you know, given her
100%.
flowers to him as a perfect example because you have to thank the people that came before you that were trailblazers and like paved the way for you.
Well, and I think that's important because I think we are all influenced by all of these artists, whether we like it or not. the first influence that we had in music was almost always what our parents were playing in like the kitchen or in the house or Christmas music. It's okay to acknowledge those that came before you.
Hmm.
And I think it takes a healthy self-esteem and sense of self to acknowledge those other artists, or to say, I remember Selena Gomez said to Kelly Clarkson, I'm not a fan of my voice, paraphrasing, I'm not a fan of my voice. I'm not like you. And Kelly Clarkson's like, oh, no, no, no. I love your tone, your way of storytelling. And that's Kelly Clarkson. Once again, you don't have to tear down these other artists. And every single vocalist has a story to tell.
Yeah.
Just because you don't like it doesn't mean they shouldn't sing it.
Yeah. You're touching on an idea about like the mechanics of like these veteran music industry executives who were playing marionette to these puppets and trying to like really just have these women like hate each other, which is, I think, something that has had so much more transparency recently that doesn't hopefully doesn't exist as much anymore because people have come out and talked about it. So I'm glad you touched on that.
Mm-hmm.
Actually, it leads me to my next question. You said on a recent episode that Britney has always credited Madonna as her inspiration,
Mm-hmm.
and you've even said it here today. And there are other artists that are clearly influenced by Madonna who wouldn't or just won't acknowledge it. Who are you talking about? Who's,
I think that the thing to remember is this: an icon like Madonna, she's innovative in how she makes music, markets music, how you experience music. When you look at so many artists that have just spoken negatively about Madonna, and I'll talk even outside of just the pop R&B field, you look at artists that were in rock or indie that had some not nice things to say about Madonna,
Mhm.
and it was like, but why? Why are
Yeah.
you wasting your moment of being interviewed about that? So they were like, well, I don't want to be like that. Guess what? That's Madonna's inspiration on you.
Yeah.
You're saying, oh, well, I don't want to be like her. So you're trying to be the anti her. So in actuality, she's still forming what you're doing.
Yeah.
It's almost comical that you like it's the cerulean thing.
Yeah. I
It's
was
like they
just
look the
thinking that.
same.
It's almost comical. I'm like,
You can look at people that have said bad things about Madonna, and even not even her peers.
Mhm.
And I'm talking about people that came around in like the 80s, but the 90s and afterwards, these
Mhm.
people that are like, well, I don't have to do, like, I'm a rock chick, I don't have to do that. And I'm air quotes on that.
Yeah.
But so many of these artists out there, including male artists, would say, well, I would never do that. So she still is influencing what you do. So like Pink talked about, they said, oh, be Britney Spears. And she's like, and if somebody said, oh, be the anti Britney Spears, it's like, well, she's still influencing what I do.
Mhm.
And that's just a little example, because Pink is another artist who's always shown love to Britney Spears. But I think people have to remember, you get so annoyed by this artist, yet your decisions as a musician were impacted by the lane that they created. You're like, oh, no, I want to get off here. She's still causing you to drive your own road this way. You are still bothered because you are influenced by this artist like Madonna. And in that, you have so much dislike for her that you're trying to be the opposite of her.
Yeah.
So she's still influencing you, whether you like it or not.
It's an interesting reframe on the idea of influence because people think, oh, you're influenced, automatically means you're inspired. With
Or
a
copying.
Right, copying, like this positive connotation, like, oh, I was inspired, I was influenced by this person to do whatever. But now you're saying that influence can also go the opposite direction and make people want to do things differently or in spite of or whatever their reasoning is due to that other person.
Because your decision is based solely on this artist.
Yeah.
That's your decision was inspired by that artist existing. And you're not copying it. You're saying, I want to do the opposite, which is still being inspired by that artist.
You're still paying attention regardless. It kind of reminds
If you
me.
didn't, how would you know what not to do?
Totally. Yeah. It kind of reminds me of, and this is, I'm only making this comparison, not obviously artistically or musically, but just from a PR perspective. If you look at the Kardashians, like I think what's genius about their PR is that they don't really care whether you like them or not. The fact is that if you tune in, if you're paying attention, if you're like, streaming, whatever it is, they win. It doesn't really matter like whether you like them or not. You could talk as much shit about them as you want. It's benefiting them.
You're keeping their name in the algorithm.
Yeah, they're influencing like whether you want to like admit to it or cop to it
Mm-hmm.
or even mention it at all or not.
100%.
I want to talk about catalogs for a second.
Okay.
Madonna had, obviously more control over her catalog, and, in that sense, reinvention than I think many. There's been a lot of stories lately that have come out about artists now going to sell their catalogs for various reasons. You've
Mhm.
had people like a Bob Dylan or a Pink Floyd who are thinking about their legacy, their grandparents in many ways, and want to, financially make sure they are ensuring that their family and all that might be taken care of for the long run. In a lot of ways, in many examples now, you're seeing many younger artists like a Katy Perry, or someone like that, or a Justin Bieber, for example, wanting to sell their catalogs. Catalogs for historically have meant control. I
Mhm.
think like for many artists, they're like, well, that's my baby. That's what I wrote. I want to decide what happens to
Mhm.
my creative work and my outlet and my body of experience. Britney obviously during her conservatorship did not have that control necessarily.
Mhm.
She wasn't able to really reinvent like she was supposed to. And Janet is famously had fought her label for a long time and then I believe walked,
Mhm.
you know.
100%.
So how much do you think of like when it comes to reinvention, how much do you think of that late career reinvention depends on the ownership of that catalog?
I think in my experience, I think it has a lot to do with it because somebody like Janet Jackson or Madonna, and we're talking because their catalogs are huge,
Huge.
and I think that these women have fought so long to have ownership in what they've created,
For decades.
100%. And I think that there is always a reason to get rid of your catalog. It's always a financial reason. That's
Mhm.
that's what it comes down to.
Yeah.
You could say, "Oh, I like Ape." Just comes down to because if it was just, "Oh, I think somebody else is better to have it," well, then you charge X amount, like it's 10 times what it brings in a year or whatever it is. But I think it's important because I think the artists that still have control over it talk about wanting control over every aspect of their history,
Mhm.
of their hard work. And some people can walk away from it. I think that there are things to consider is when you look at a lot of the artists that have talked about getting rid of their catalog, and we'll just use that with air quotes. I think people out there know what
Yeah.
we're talking about. But I think that it's and I've talked with artists that have talked about selling their catalog, and I've been asked, what do I think about X, Y, and Z with it? And I just put it as this. If you have a catalog where you basically didn't write a lot of that, or you have a catalog where you don't have that connection, I get why somebody would just want to walk away from it.
Mhm.
Not saying that every case, but in those situations, I think it's when you fought so hard for the work that you created that is your child, that is part of your identity, and you're not going to get rid of that no matter the cost. I think Madonna has shown that her catalog, every time she has another successful moment, people go back to that catalog. She's continuing to replenish these songs with new audience, with the revisits of those. So I think it comes down to an artist wants to control every aspect of what they actually can hold on to. And neither based on what they still take home without selling their catalog, they're doing just fine.
Yeah.
But if they need something, that would be a way to I equate it to like selling your house. There's a point where you're just like, you know what are you going to get out of it?
Mhm.
And I get some people's situations, um, and it's up to the artist. But I think that there's an attachment to your work, and you've worked so hard. Specifically, women.
Mhm.
You hear a lot of male artists that sell their catalogs all the time. You don't hear very many women that do that.
That actually brings me to confessions too, as far as Madonna's concerned. You had I believe it was a recent episode or a post or something, you had said, you don't have to chase the future if you already spent your life creating it. Could you
Yes.
say more about that?
I think what we now talk about manifestation and everything like that,
Yeah.
such like a 2020s plus word
Yeah.
in our vernacular, I should say. I think what Madonna did was she has created a world in which she is okay with where she's at.
Yeah.
Madonna has spent decades creating this world in which she created the outcomes that she has. She doesn't need to go, okay, I need to chase that. I need to do that. She's living in Madonna's own world. And I think with Madonna having busted her ass for decades, she's given us so much music and so many moments that her future's there. She wanted to conquer the world. She did that 10 times over.
Yeah.
So she doesn't have to chase anything anymore. She
She's
created a world in which she's already there.
the best-selling solo female artist of all time.
The achievements are astounding all the way around.
Yeah. Yeah. And as far as the world of Confessions too, when we talk about like the conceptually versus, so obviously this is the first sequel, direct sequel, let's say, that she's ever done in her entire discography, right? So Confessions 1 was, a little over 20 years ago. She had redefined pop, like, in her own way again, highlighting the club atmosphere, and electronic, definitely proclaiming a lot about the time period too. Like when I think about I Love New York, the song, it was proclaiming herself as a New Yorker, but it was also an FU to George Bush and saying like, get off my street. Like she was using that as a political stance too. Obviously nothing new for her. She's always been political as well. But when I think about Confessions 2, it's so the emphasis of a whole night out in one album is so palpable. From I Feel So Free through to Lower East Side Girl, you feel like you are going from like getting ready to go out with your besties to the club to like literally coming home at 5 a.m. and watching the sunrise. And this is like the world that she's kind of given you, but she wants to remind you, this is where this type of music came from, and this is where I came from too.
I think that it's such a beautiful, as I've said, like origin story. We live in a world in which now we're experiencing what that was like. The disco thing felt so different on Confessions. With 2, she's giving you a night of just going, okay, this is what we're doing. You feel free. And each she comes back, and in addition, she's allowing us, the listeners, to say, you could have this baggage, this familial baggage, issues with siblings or step parents or exes, that those still exist, but take a moment and just enjoy this night.
Yeah.
The world doesn't disappear forever, but for that moment on the dance floor, it does. You can find your people and you just smile and you see somebody else dancing and having their own moment. And I think she gave us a full thesis of her entire career. This is what it's like to be in the world that I'm in.
Yeah.
And it doesn't change the fact that the world can be real crappy at times. You still have jobs in the morning. You still have family issues. But in that moment, you can just feel free to just be free. And that has always been the epitome and the DNA of Madonna. Be yourself, even though the rest of the world doesn't want to see it or hear it. You'll find your community when you need to find your community.
Yeah. I think you just summarized it like better than anyone I'd heard so far. When I talk to people about Confessions 2, who are real fans, Danceteria is the obvious example, but it does seem to me like she is more comfortable, like really telling the story of where she came from than she ever has before. And by that, I mean, I think that for so long, people have probably propositioned her to tell it, that they wanted her to have some residency in Vegas, which she probably thought was, well, that's for old artists. That's for people who just have like greatest hits and legacies. And she doesn't want to be seen as that and only defined as only what she's done before. She wants people to pay attention to what she's doing now. But she kind of did it in her own way on this album, where she did get to go back and revisit these feelings and these people and these stories. If you look at, Danceteria is the obvious example. And even with Bizarre, where she's pretty much like, she's definitely, showing how she still feels about Sean Penn and that marriage to this day. Just as 2 examples on the album. But, it's her own example of this is my legacy show.
And I think it's her confessing to the world that this is really where I stand, looking back, being nostalgic in a way of looking back, and there's every aspect. You think you know, but you don't. It sounds like the Diary of on MTV.
Yeah.
You think you know, but you have no idea. But I think that what Madonna gave us was more insight than she'd ever given before. She's hinted to different things.
Yeah.
But truly to have Confessions be sonically this amazing dance album, but also truly confessing, truly saying, this is where I stand with all of these. And if that is her final studio album, I'm just saying, like, that would be just an amazing way to end the studio album run. She still has a lot more in her. Critically, I think this is going to be up there with Ray of Light. I think with already the response from the music critics who have been very harsh to her in the past, I think Madonna gave us an album worthy of more Grammys and more accolades.
Yeah, and this is I think this is one of her best reviewed albums
100%.
ever. Which is wild when you think about, and I hate like emphasizing her age and all that. I really like talk about it more as just in the trajectory of such a long, illustrious career that she's had. But to be at this point in her life and generating like one of the best reviewed albums she's ever had in her entire career after everything is like unheard of. Truly unheard of.
And let's not forget, just being decades into her career, creating something that is loved by dance music and her love of dance, that she's not, a woman that's like, here's my Broadway, so not shade to anybody else who's done that, but it's not what she did. She's still able to
Tracy rip.
But she created something within the realm of Madonna that makes the most sense and made it still feel genuine and still connects with us, the listeners, which is amazing. She doesn't make it just for that, but it just happens that it just so seamlessly becomes something that is really enticing to all of us to get back into this Madonna album and re-listen from beginning to end.
And one thing I love about when you talk about these artists that you love is your chart history. Like your insight into the Billboard charts is insane. Like my dad has worked in the music business a very long time, but like your specific memory when it comes to like the charting of your favorites is like, I've never seen anything like it. And I don't know if you saw this today. It was just reported Madonna had earned her 10th #1 album on the Billboard 200 this week with Confessions 2. She joins the Beatles, Taylor Swift, and Drake as the only artist in history with 10 #1s on both the Billboard 200 and the Hot 100.
See?
There's nothing surprising about that to you, is there?
Not
even the slightest. Me neither.
No. And it's amazing because people ask me, James, but why are sales important? I go, because it's one of the only ways that we ourselves can really say it was bought, it was streamed by these people. Here's just facts. She has a #1 album.
Yeah. Yeah. And the fact that she has achieved this in like pretty much every decade of her career is also absolutely outstanding too, because it's not just the numbers themselves. It's just the proof is in the pudding that she is both innovating and setting a standard. If you were an A&R yourself,
okay,
which I feel like at this point you've interviewed enough folks like in that space to, maybe be able to do it yourself, at least in my opinion. I'll give you 2 examples of like more modern pop stars: Sabrina Carpenter, Olivia Rodrigo.
Okay.
Without the audience knowing exactly who these A&R teams are, this by name, whomever, which team behind them do you think is building the most intelligently, and where do you see opportunity for one of the others there?
I think that Olivia Rodrigo is truly exciting because when we look at artists, she's not a pop star in what the typical thought of what we always thought a pop star would be, She's rock. She is, she reminded me of, with her first album, it reminded me of Cyndi Lauper's first album.
For Sour.
Yeah. And it's like when I listened to her, I'm like, oh my God, this is so good. And it felt like my teen angst was jumping back out. She's smart with what she does. She has a great relationship with her audience and knows her audience. She's given us so many different sonic sides to herself and able to perform genuinely and stand there amongst icons that are there. You have, and Sabrina Carpenter, same thing with Madonna doing that. Those two can handle being on stage with these icons because they love their music and they love what they do. When I see Olivia Rodrigo perform, I see somebody who actually is really enjoying being on stage. When I see Sabrina Carpenter on stage, I see someone who is having the most fun on stage.
Ever. Yeah.
And
she's worked her ass off to get to this point. Like this short and sweet, whole project is just perfect and genius for her, in my opinion.
And nowadays people are getting so confused because they're like, James, explain this to me. Didn't her album come out like 2 years ago and she's still touring with
Still
this? Like,
touring it.
it's
Doesn't
like,
matter.
but it's such a different time. Before you would have an album come out, a tour, go away for a bit, album come out, tour. Now it's like overlapping. So I think those two, I think what they are doing is so amazing because it makes me excited for music, both of them and their personas. If you've ever watched Chicken Shop with Sabrina Carpenter, the way that she does this rhyming part, if you know, you know.
Yeah.
I think that Sabrina is camp in the best way possible and she owns it.
Yeah.
Olivia Rodrigo is rock in the best way and she owns it. So bravo to those two.
Do you think there's one opinion of yours that's changed because you've done the show and the podcast?
It's seeing how the sausage is made.
Yeah.
I think when I've had calls with artists or people at labels or had meetings with people in general to get my opinion on X, Y, and Z, you really see how things work. And sometimes it's amazing and other times you're like, oh, it's not so great. And when I interview the songwriters, it's heartbreaking when you hear songwriters say they had this #1 song with this artist. And in the contract that they had, the artist took the writing from them by saying that they were the writer on that song when they were not. And the artist goes on and makes money from endorsement deals, tours, all of those things. That songwriter is only making money on that one song. And I feel bad because it goes back to having a team. You don't know what you don't know. That's why there's so many young and amazing songwriters out there. They don't know how the business was run. Now it's a little bit more, not completely, a little bit more transparent. You can see TikToks of Money Long talking about that. You can see Ray talking about how she was stuck in a contract. They wouldn't let her release her own music. And then she releases an album and it just
Blows
phenomenal.
up. Yeah.
And I think that's the hardest part about what I do with talking to the songwriters and producers is it sometimes changes my mind on some artists because it comes down to respect.
And giving credit where credit's due.
100%. And I think I feel bad when specifically like women of color that I've talked to that are songwriters that really continually would get screwed. And we're talking from 2002 on. And it sucks that that's the world we live in. So it has changed me because I look at some artists differently now because it's just about respect. You can be a hard worker and not have my respect as a true collaborator because you're taking stuff from artists that you shouldn't.
Yeah. I really appreciate you saying that because I think that the streaming platforms and via social media, like I've touched on about like your podcast before, now there are people who finally have more of a voice and are able to speak to what they're doing now and what's happened and how different it is than it used to be than it is before. Spotify is way more transparent about songwriters and those credits and being able to highlight them, you know, rather before than they ever had before as well, which is very important when you're talking about this. We're not going to get into the streaming economy and who's paid out and how and fractions of cents and all that stuff. But I don't think the work is all done. I do think we are better off, though.
I do. And I want to say one thing that I thought was important is when I first started the original doll, you were hard pressed if it was digital to find out who the songwriter, creator, or anyone was. You would just see that artist. And I talked to different songwriting advocate organizations. They're like, you have on Mayonnaise, you have to list everything involved, where it was all done. But music, it's just like, whatever, it doesn't really matter. It's like, but it does matter. It's somebody's blood, sweat, and tears. It's somebody's experience that they wrote about. And so many times it's these young, great songwriters that are not getting the credit. Now, credits are actually, you can find them more. And also with people getting more excited about physical product again, that we're able to see those. And I tell people, if you don't like that one artist, but you like the one song, check out the songwriter and producer. Follow them. Chances are you're going to like that music.
Yeah. And now people can. Now people can say, oh, wait, this person wrote for Dua and for this and for that. I mean, look at Sia and her history with Britney alone, like, for example.
So many of these artists started out as songwriters themselves. And I think it's amazing to really go back in and hear that. Or you hear those were songs that were originally for their artist project, their own thing. You can find some of them online. And it's interesting to hear somebody's take when they wrote it versus another artist who just comes in, does a phenomenal job. But there's always something a little bit different when it's a raw demo vocal that I appreciate and I lean towards.
I love that. Actually, it leads me to one of my last questions. If someone discovers the original doll 10 years from now, what do you hope that they understand about the people who made this music?
That my voice was higher then? No, I don't know. I think I want them to, if 10 years from now, if you come upon the show, I want people to know it's a snapshot in this moment that some of these artists could be canceled. Some of them, might not be here anymore. But in this moment, it's about honoring those artists with what they've done. And this is just a fossil. This is just a time capsule for you to come back to. Everything that I've said is fact-based in those times. So if you want to follow the chronology of music and where we've been to where we're going, this is a snapshot for you. From leading to where Madonna, Janet, Britney, all these great artists, Darren Hayes, all these great artists started to where they've been. So in 10 years, the hope is all of those artists are still in the conversation and it'll make you excited to learn about their origin stories.
And who has come and been inspired for them, whether that be, from Mariah and Whitney to Ariana to Miley, and even more recent than that to a Charlie XCX to a Kim
All
Petras
amazing.
to whoever it might be. Yeah.
And you'll hear more and more. There are different episodes coming up with certain artists coming up that in 10 years, people are going to be like, oh, that's amazing. I learned about X, Y, and Z on there or whatever. It's great. But I always think about the music that influenced you and find out who created that. Find out how it was created. It'll make you fall in love with these songs and albums again or at a different level. And those you carry with you. And every album that all of us bought in our high school years really plays a huge part in the music that we carry with us for the rest of our lives. Those albums that were listened to, that were created in our high school time, we stick with those. Think about the first album or the first digital album you bought with your own money.
It was actually Get Rich or Die Trying, 50 Cent. That was the first thing I bought with my
that
own.
Tracks.
I remember it was in Best Buy like it was yesterday. Oh my
Jaws
God.
dropped from the people watching and listening.
I know.
But you
didn't know that.
You thought you know, but you have no idea. This is the Diary of Zach.
Yeah.
But I think when you think about that too, everyone think about the first ever album you bought with your own money and think about what you thought of it. It's an amazing moment.
Yeah. And it was special because you thought it felt like yours.
100%.
At the end of, every show, I always leave with a sense of gratitude, and that's really where the name came from. So I would say before we cheers, what would you like to toast to?
I would like to toast to all of those people that make this possible. Everyone here, but also, this, partners, husbands, the people that support behind what we do. There's a lot of people that go into allowing us to do what we love to do. So I just want to give cheers and appreciation to Casey out there. I don't know who you want to give that, but
Josh, you know who you are.
There you go.
Cheers to this, and thank you for welcoming me back to Chicago. It's been too long since I've been back, and this is definitely one of my favorite trips. I'm so glad I got to talk to you because you are easily one of the most learned and informed people who really know their stuff about really what makes people happy.
Oh, that's very. I have no words.
Do you want to cheers to that?
Yeah. Cheers to that. Can't get better than that. Cheers. Thank
Margaritas
you so
all around.
Thank you so much for having me. This is awesome.
Anytime. You're welcome back. Before we cheers all, thank you so much.
I prematurely cheersed.
No, you didn't. Oh, that's actually pretty good.
That's really good.